Good evening. It's 5:01, and you are with Connecting Families from the Federation for Children with Special Needs. My name is Rebecca Davis. I am the Director of Transition Projects, and this is our monthly virtual series of information. We do monthly series talking about a variety of topics, and this month's topic rather is about ABLE accounts, or the Achieving a Better Life Experience account. And we are really, really lucky today to have Adam Hartwell from MIFA. He is the Director of Attainable Outreach, and he's going to talk with us today about all things ABLE account. So we would ask you to let Adam do his thing, and then we'll do questions at the end. We will be keeping an eye on questions in the chat. Also, there were some questions sent ahead of time, so we do have those, and we will address those at the end. So we are so glad to see you. Welcome. And I will let Adam take it away.
Very, very kind. Thank you so much for having me. As Rebecca said, my name is Adam Hartwell. I'm the Director of Attainable Outreach for MIFA, Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority. I'm going to be sharing my screen, which is a PowerPoint presentation. I'd like everyone to know at the outset that I will be giving a copy of this presentation to the FCSN to distribute. So you don't need to worry about trying to take notes on everything you see on the screen. We'll get it to you. We'll get that out to you in short order. And please do feel free to send in your questions. And as noted, we'll try to get to everything at the end there. That being said, there we go. Attainable, the ABLE Savings Plan. All right. So, as I said, I work for MIFA, the Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority, which is a state authority that was created by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in 1982 to help families plan, save, and pay for college and reach financial goals. When ABLE was announced and passed in 2014, we were selected to be the state sponsor here in Massachusetts. The Stephen Beck Jr., or Achieving a Better Life Experience Act, or ABLE Act, as it is tended to be called, amended the federal tax code in 2014 to add Section 529A. Many people are familiar with 529 college savings accounts who might not have run into 529A. The reason they are so close is that they share a lot of things in common, and MIFA is a very strong provider of 529 accounts, which is one of the reasons that we are the sponsors. So 529 college savings accounts are investment accounts for qualified education expenses. 529A established ABLE accounts, which are in tax exempt or tax advantage investment accounts for eligible individuals with disabilities to be used for qualified disability expenses while still keeping their eligibility for federal public benefits. And I'm aware that there are a lot of questions about every couple words I just said in that paragraph. And don't worry, we'll go into detail on all of this through the course of the presentation. But if you'd like to look into the bill itself, it's HR 5771. Oop, and I just accidentally launched it. Whoop, see, I just, sorry, I accidentally clicked on the link. So, there are 49 active ABLE programs in the United States. In Massachusetts, accounts from the ABLE Act are called Attainable Savings Accounts. Essentially, one of the ways they got this passed is that every state has a measure of control, and there's slight differences between the programs across the states. There are some federal guidelines that everybody follows, but there are some uniqueness to each state, particularly around the areas of the maximum amount of money that you can contribute to the account and the nature of some of the portfolios and so on and so forth. The Attainable Savings Plan was launched in 2017. MIFA, as I said, is the state sponsor, and Fidelity Investments is our program manager. So they're the ones who do our investments and make sure that the money goes where it's supposed to go and what have you. Now then, who is eligible for an attainable account? And individuals are eligible for an attainable account if the onset of disability occurred before the individual turned 26 years old. That is onset, not age that you currently are. So you can be 77, but if your doctor says you were born with a condition, you could open an account right this moment. We did pass a couple years ago the ABLE Age Adjustment Act. So on January 1st of 2026, that age of onset is going to be before age 46 instead of age 26. So there will be a lot of individuals who may have uh, had a condition that occurred after 26 that are not currently eligible, but will be able to be eligible as of January 1 of next year. A person should be eligible to receive SSI or SSDI due to their disability, or self-certify as meeting requirements, which requires a diagnosis with functional limitations, essentially saying that your disability is marked and severe, such as those in the Social Security Administration's Blue Book, or they're in their compassionate allowances conditions. And you look at my little list on the right here, this is some of the things that might qualify that we don't generally consider, because a lot of times we think about developmental disability, but we don't think about the fact that if you have long-term cancer recovery that is keeping you from being able to hold down work, or is creating a lot of physical problems for you, you'd be qualified for ABLE. If you have a mental health disorder that is challenging you from being able to participate and giving you functional limitations, you would be qualified for an ABLE account. There are a lot of different things that would qualify you for an ABLE account. Just because it's a question I got a lot, there's a lot of legalese on this page, but essentially it's the example of the self-certification form language. Once again, you want the severe medically determinable impairment that results marked in severe functional limitations that have lasted or can be expected to last for at least 12 months and are or can be expected to result in death. So again, this is all to say essentially that it's something that is impacting you on a daily basis and will probably continue to do so. There is a separate category that is also this, which is the individual is being blind. And then we have the whole description of exactly what that means. But again, there's a lot of different conditions that might put you in that list. You do not need to be receiving SSI or SSDI, though, is the point. Even if you're not receiving those things, you can still be qualified for ABLE. Attainable accounts allow the account owners to or beneficiary to save above the current $2,000 SSI asset limit without affecting their federal benefits, which is one of the big reasons that people utilize them. If you're not utilizing SSI, it still creates a tax advantage space where you can save for your future and be able to assist yourself with meeting your needs. But one of the big things that we see for reasons that people might want to open ABLE is the fact that you can go beyond the $2,000 asset limit. Family and friends are allowed to contribute to the account. And that's actually becoming easier and easier. And we have some great information about that as we get towards the end of the presentation. And beneficiaries have relatively immediate access to funds. I added the word relatively in here because these are investment accounts. So whenever you take money out of the account, you're essentially doing a small scale trade. So it can take 24 or 48 hours sometimes at the max for what you would request money out of the account and for it to then get to your bank account. So just be aware of giving yourself a little bit of flexibility when it comes to taking money out of these accounts. These accounts do provide a lot of individuals with financial independence and several tax benefits, and we'll dig into the specifics of that as well. Now, we've said the word qualified disability expenses several times now. Let's talk about exactly what that means. That is a nebulous term that essentially means any cost that can be related to health, personal support services, which include financial management, legal fees, financial oversight, including ABLE oversight, anything transportation. That means not just buying a car, it's also maintaining your wheelchair van, it's paying for Uber or Lyft, it's getting a public transportation pass, employment training supports, funeral and burial expenses, assistive technology and related services, which does include things like applications. So if you already have an iPad and you want to get a different augmentative communication app, for instance, and you know that's going to cost $500, that would be something you could get out of ABLE. Education expenses, and we'll dig into that a little bit more detail, but the point is anything related to your education, including you're able to save up to pay for college utilizing ABLE. Prevention and wellness expenses, basic living expenses, which we got a clarification a couple years ago to ensure that all food is considered a qualified disability expense. So whether that's a grocery or fast food or DoorDash, wherever you get food, food is a qualified disability expense. And you may have noticed that I skipped over housing, and that's because I have a whole page just for housing, because we have actually gotten a lot of expansions to and clarification to what we can pay for as far as housing is concerned. And I will note that this was something that I saw in the questions that were sent to me earlier. So you can pay for a mortgage and house down payment out of savings that you made in your ABLE account. That includes any property insurance from the mortgage holder. You can pay your rent out of ABLE. That not just includes your regular rent, but also your first, last, and security. Anything is that's fine. You can pay for that out of ABLE. Real property taxes. For anyone who doesn't know, real property taxes are the taxes on the things that stay with the land when you leave. Mostly it's buildings and the land itself and like the barn or the shed or whatever. It's as opposed to your personal property that comes with you.
Adam,
Heat.
we've had a
Yeah.
request that you slow down just a little bit in
Yeah.
your speaking. Thank you.
Oh, happy to do it. Sorry. I get excited. Anything having to do with heat, fuel, gas, electricity, water, sewer, anything like that, that's your bills for your home, garbage removal, all of those things are considered qualified disability expenses for the purposes of ABLE. Who can open an account? The account, of course, can be opened by the individual who has the disability themselves. They are always the first person. They are always the owner of the account, regardless of whether or not they're the ones who open the account. The person who opens the account and has control over the account, does the withdrawals and deposits, is generally referred to as the person with signature authority, or PSA. So again, that can be the individual with the disability themselves, and if it's not them, then they will still be the beneficiary or owner of the account, but other individuals may open it on their behalf with their permission. And that could be the person with the power of attorney, their legal guardian, their spouse, their parent, their sibling, their grandparent, or fairly new, their representative payee. This is a hierarchy. So when you're filling out the paperwork to say, I'm opening this account and this is my role in this person's life, you are essentially declaring that everyone higher than you on the list didn't want the responsibility. So you didn't want to be in charge of the finances for whatever reason that may or may not, whatever. So if the legal guardian wants that responsibility and so does the parent, the legal guardian gets to take that responsibility. Now that being said, when you have a legal based relationship to an individual, their power of attorney, guardian, rep payee, you are going to have to provide the documentation stating that relationship as part of setting up the account. So you can see that specific documentation here. So if you're power of attorney, Fidelity only accepts durable power of attorney paperwork. So you have to have the copy of the attorney drafted POA documentation. Legal guardian has to have the court documents that say that you're the guardian. Rep payee has to have the social security documentation giving them that status. And if the rep payee is an entity or an organization or an agency, they still get documentation from the Social Security Administration and they can provide that. Now you'll note that if you have a familial relationship with an individual, a spouse, parent, sibling, grandparent, you don't have any additional documentation requirements. So if you are a parent who is also a legal guardian and you don't think someone's going to try and swoop on above you to take the responsibility of the finances, one of the things that you can do is you can just fill out the opening the account as a parent, and then you won't have to go through the process of submitting that paperwork. But again, make sure that you're considering the realities of the individuals in the person you're responsible for his life before you make those decisions. Let's go into a little bit of the numbers on these accounts. So almost every year that these accounts have been around, in particular the last several years, the amount that you can contribute annually has gone up. So in 2025, the total annual contribution cannot exceed $19,000. However, if the individual is employed, they are allowed to put more into the account every year. It is up to the lesser of their gross income or the current federal poverty line, which again has gone up this year to $15,060. So in theory, if a person is making, say, $16,000 a year at a part-time job, they could put $34,060 into their ABLE account. That is due to the Able to Work Act. Now, one of the things I want to make sure I'm clear about, because I don't want anyone to get mad at me about 10 months from now, that is due to expire at the end of this year. There are actually several things that were provisionally put into ABLE that are going to be perhaps expire at the end of this year. They have been rolled together into a piece of legislation called the Enable, E-N-A-B-L-E Act that is currently being voted on to make these things permanent. So that includes able to work. It also includes something you'll see later in the presentation about being able to roll money from a 529 college savings account directly to an Able account without any taxes or fees. So these are things that if you want to do them, you want to do them this year because there's a possibility those extra benefits might not be around next year. Until you have $100,000 in your Able account, it will not affect your SSI. So instead of a $2,000 asset limit, which you still get to have, you still have the $2,000 outside of Able. You are also able to have up to $100,000 in Able without it affecting SSI. Now, you are allowed to save more than that, but that's when it starts affecting your SSI. So in Massachusetts, this is one of the things that changes state by state. You are allowed to contribute up to $500,000 into the account. And I'm very clear about the word contribute because as an investment account, it does grow with the stock market. So even if you say you get up to $500,000 and you stop adding money yourself, it's still allowed to keep growing from the investments and go beyond that. Any money that is in the Able account will not affect any federal benefits. So that includes SSI, that includes HUD housing waivers, SNAP. Like if you have money in an Able account for one child, it will not affect another child's FAFSA application because that money belongs to the child, doesn't belong to the parents. It doesn't affect Medicare Parts A, B, C, or D, or Medicaid. All federal benefits are unaffected by money that is in an Able account. In the Massachusetts program, there is no annual account maintenance fee. Again, these are some of the things that are different from state to state. But they are investment accounts, so there are investment fees based on the portfolio that you select, and they tend to range from 0.2 to 0.86% of your assets. Generally, that is much lower than what the return from the investments will be. So if you say you got a 6% return on your portfolio, and then you were, let's say, the worst case scenario, you got that full 0.86% thing, you'd be making a 5% return instead of essentially, but you'd still be making money on the account instead of losing it. Some of the ways that real world that Able can really be helpful to people, and I like to include these because I spent 20 years providing supports in residences and employment and in the school system. Without the Able Act, as we know, you got the $2,000 in assets, and whenever you have more than $2,000, that triggers what often referred to as a spend down. We got to get rid of your money quickly before it affects your benefits, because we need your benefits to pay for your doctor, to keep your housing, to so many things. So you got to get rid of the money fast. And if you're in a group home, it has to make sure that it doesn't benefit the house at large. It can only benefit you personally, but it can't be anything that keeps its value, because if it keeps its value, then it's an asset and you're getting the same problem. So you got to buy something useless immediately. And so we see a lot of bedroom sets, nice curtains being bought, things like, and this is a thing that often was a area of challenge for me, because I'm like, that's your money. You shouldn't have to spend it on something you don't want and don't need. And one of the great things about Able is, again, you can be putting money in that for things you need later instead. We also see when people have unexpected money come in. We got a bonus at work. The COVID relief funds were a big one for a lot of people. Suddenly had too much money. And so having an Able account gives you a place to just put that money so you can save for larger expenses without fear. You can save for a necessary medical need. You can save to be able to replace your wheelchair in a couple years. You can save for changing the counter heights in your home so that they work better for you. Whatever it is that you need, as opposed to needing to get rid of the money immediately on something that you don't need. So I find that that's a very strong benefit of these accounts, and one of the reasons I'm a very strong advocate for them, because it allows people the opportunity to save. Additionally, one of the big barriers for a lot of folk is education. And the fact that you can use Attainable to pay for education is really incredible to me. And that goes beyond just, where a lot of people go to, where you can absolutely pay for your college. You can pay for tuition out of Able, but you can also pay for your textbooks. You can pay for assistive technology. You can pay for a tutor. You can pay for assistance. One of the big things that we see is that if people are coming out of the high school environment, in high school, the staff is the point of contact for all the supports that you receive. A teacher notices that you need something, they set you up with testing, they find out what accommodation you need, they let all your other teachers know about it in meetings, and everybody's on the same page. When you go into and you go into like college education, you need to be able to advocate for yourself. You need to be able to describe your needs. You need to be able to know that you have to go to disability services, explain to them what you need, explain to them what accommodations you need, take that list of accommodations, be able to explain them to each teacher. If the teachers are not providing them, then turn around and be able to bring them back to disability services and explain it again. There are a lot of spaces where having some funds put aside to be able to pay for supports, to be able to pay for recording devices, to pay for those pens that can read text aloud to you, can maybe be the difference maker between being successful in college and not, due to various learning or other challenges. Finally, and this is admittedly just sort of a workaround that I just like to acknowledge. There is a way to use Able to make an attempt that a lot of people have been asking for but haven't been able to do in the past when it comes to employment, because we have seen, everybody's told 20 to 25-hour work week. That's all you're allowed to have, because if you earn too much money, you're going to lose your SSI, you're going to lose your doctor, you're going to lose your house, you're going to lose everything. However, again, money in Able doesn't count against SSI, and you can and money in Able can be used to pay for all your bills. So this is you're trying to use the system for itself, kind of a thing, where if you save up enough money in Able to cover bills for a couple of months, and then say, I want to try working full time. I believe I'm capable of it, but everybody said I shouldn't even try, because if I do, SSI is going to be suspended and then I'm going to be stuck. Okay, so let's save up enough and Able to cover your bills, give it a try. If it's successful, you now have a full-time job and some savings. If it's unsuccessful, you can then go back to part-time, use your Able savings to then cover those bills that you need, your benefits, and then reestablish your SSI. Generally speaking, and I'm going to be very clear that this is generally speaking, because everything is different for every person. Please check with a benefits counselor before you try one of this sort of sideways trick here. But if you start SSI is restarted within 12 months of suspending it, and the condition that granted you SSI has not changed, reestablishing it shouldn't be an issue. But again, please check in with a benefits counselor or something about that before you try that route. But I do like to acknowledge that there are some creative ways that we can utilize the fact that you're allowed to save to provide new opportunities. One of the big questions that I get when I am talking about these funds at resource fairs and what have you is, okay, I set up the account. I don't know how to get the money back out of it. I don't know how I can use it. There are some Able accounts in the country that have cards that go directly to their Able accounts. All of those things also have an annual fee to pay for that service. We don't have the annual fee, but we provide the same service with an extra step, essentially, here in Massachusetts. The way to do essentially what they're doing in those states that do that directly is that you set up a cash management account, which is essentially a bank account with Fidelity. That cash management account comes with a Visa debit card, so it works anywhere Visa works. And then you can just use Fidelity's app and drop money from your investment account to your cash management account and then be able to spend it. You do not have to do that. That is just a very easy and clean way that we found that's very useful for people to know about. You can transfer money from Able to any bank account you want. I do not want another bank account. I like Citizens, I like Bank of America, I like my local credit union, whoever. You can just send the money from Fidelity to that bank. Each bank has its own timeline for how long it takes for money to transfer. Usually it's 5 business days. So again, be aware of sort of those timelines when you're considering how you're going to be spending the account and when. Once funds leave the account, they're not in the account anymore. So even if you take the exact same money and put it back into the account, it counts towards the annual contribution limit, that $19,000 we mentioned before. So in theory, I could take $1 and I could put it into my ABLE account, and then I could take it out and I could put it in, and I could do that 19,000 times, and I could use my entire contribution limit with a single dollar. I doubt anybody's really going to do that, but it is something that, again, I like everyone to be cognizant of how these programs work. And I mentioned earlier that because withdrawals from attainable account are investment trade, usually about 24 hours for that money to clear from one account to the other. There is a federal rule. This is nothing to do with Massachusetts or anything, but again, I try to make sure we've got very clear understanding of how these accounts work, that any funds that are withdrawn for housing have to be used within the same calendar month they are withdrawn. So don't try to take money out on the 30th to pay your rent on the 1st. Take money out on the 25th and pay your rent on the 30th. You know, it all has to be done in the same calendar month. It's under the same sort of understanding of when you have to put down how much you're paying per month for rent on your taxes. There is an understanding of monthly expenses from a lot of different programs, which this sort of connects to. Same reason for, you know, the reason doesn't affect HUD, doesn't affect all these other things. SSI is distributed monthly, so on and so forth. A question I've received a couple times, so I've included it in this presentation, is about there were some families that have been saving money in bonds. And they're wondering if they could roll those directly into ABLE. Unfortunately, you cannot. You're going to have to cash out a bond and then put that money into ABLE afterwards. Opening an account is very, very simple. You go to fidelity.com/able. I highly recommend everyone download the Fidelity Attainable Savings Account disclosure document. That is the big legal document with all the details on the specifics of how the account works. It's essentially a page about everything that I say a sentence about in this presentation. A big point where people often run into a challenge is when they get a couple screens into opening the account and they see the portfolio options and they're like, I'm not an investment banker. I don't know what portfolios are. I don't know which one of these I should select. And then they stop and then they have to start over. On the main page on fidelity.com/able, you can see what the portfolios we offer are. There are 9 portfolio options, and I'll be showing them to you in just a moment. But I do recommend you think about that and make those decisions before you start the process of opening the account, because that will ensure that you don't get to that stopping point. And I try to eliminate confusion wherever I can. Additionally, if you are a rep payee, the Social Security Administration requires that you must title the ABLE account to show that the payee has a fiduciary interest in the funds and that the beneficiary owns the funds but has no access to them. They have a preference in how you title this, and that is beneficiary's name by payee's name, representative payee, or payee's name, representative payee for beneficiary's name. They'd like you to title the account to be very clear about that relationship. And perhaps one of the most important tips I'll give in this entire presentation on fidelity.com/able. If you scroll down just a tiny bit, you'll see a picture of a phone. And next to it is the 2 phone numbers you see on the screen right here. 844-458-2253, 800-544-0118 if it's TTY. If you Google Fidelity and you call the number that comes up, you're going to get sent to the big menu of the entire brokerage that is Fidelity, and a lot of those people have no idea what ABLE is. But that phone number goes directly to the Attainable trained team. That is your helpline. That not only will be the people who you might want to call while you're opening the account to answer any questions that you have about opening the account, maybe even help walk you through opening an account. If you have any problems with your account, that's also the number that you call in order to talk to someone about the account. I want to be clear, ABLE is a small part of Fidelity. So if you go to a Fidelity branch, and there's a couple of them in Massachusetts, odds are there is not an ABLE trained individual at the physical location. I'm sorry to say that's probably a waste of your time. You will be much better served utilizing that phone number. So I have two different views of our portfolios. This one and the next one where I have it a little bit more graphic oriented, but just to understand, we have these 9 portfolio options that you can select for your ABLE account. They're municipal fund securities. It's the stock market. They are subject to what the stock market does. It'll go up and down with the stock market because it is an investment account. So you can sort of select how much risk you want in the stock market. So you can have it up at a pure money market account where it's essentially not in the stock market, or you can go 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, or up to 85% into the stock market, which, very risky, possibility for big gains, possibility for big losses. Additionally, if you feel like getting really, into the weeds on this, you can actually break your funds up among these. You can say, I want 50% of my money in the money market. I want 30% in the moderate income portfolio, and I want 20% at 70%. You can split it up if you want to. But the point is and you're allowed to change that twice per calendar year. So one of the things we often see people do, I'll be honest, most people tend to just pick one of these and go with it, is maybe you're more aggressive as if you're trying to use this as a savings account before until you get close to when you might want to use the money. So for instance, if you set up one of these accounts when you have a very young child, we see this with our college savings accounts a lot. All right, so we have it like 50, 60% until they get to being like 15 or 16 years old. Then they scale back to like 30% because in a couple of years you're going to want to use those funds, and you don't want perhaps the bottom goes out of the stock market and suddenly you lose a lot right before you need the funds. Vast majority of folk who have these portfolios tend to go sort of towards the middle in that moderate to balanced zone on one end or the other. But that is a choice that everyone gets to make, or you can also certainly consult with a investment advisor of your choice or whomever you'd like to about which portfolio would meet your needs. As I said, this is the exact same information, just, more picture based. Again, to sort of just show how the money gets broken down between the various type of, options that the portfolios can go towards. Now, there is the opportunity and availability for, if an individual is working, for attainable accounts can receive direct deposit, including direct deposit of SSI or SSDI benefit funds if you so choose. You can make ABLE the designated account if you're a rep payee for it. If you're direct depositing a paycheck, it has to stay under the original 19,000, even though you're allowed to put that additional $15,000 and full stumble, excuse me, $15,060 in. You have to cash your paycheck and then put that in manually. You can't direct deposit it. I didn't make the rules, I just report them. Direct depositing today Attainable is just like any other account. There's a routing number, there's an account number. Be aware that as an investment account, oftentimes this has a different number of digits than a savings or checking account. So if you get that little form from somebody's workplace that says fill in the boxes, it doesn't fit in the boxes. And your local manager might be very confused by that, but human resources can do it, I promise. Just they might need to be made aware that that's, I'm sorry, it doesn't fit in your boxes. According to the Department of Labor, last time I checked, you're allowed to split your work income to up to 5 different bank accounts if you want to. So you could put a small amount into ABLE, some of it into checking, some of it into saving, if that's what you would like to do with your work income. SSI and SSDI have to go into their designated account. They can only go one place. So if you don't want all of it to go into ABLE and fall under ABLE's rules, all of it is going to have to go somewhere else. And then you put the amount that you'd like to go into ABLE yourself afterwards. As these are investment accounts, they do best if they're growing. So there is the ability when you set up the account to have it set up so that a certain amount of money is always systematically going into the account, with like one of the ones that's sort of defaulted for is $15 a month or $45 per quarter. That's what, it's sort of set up for, just as an option for people. You can open the account with $0. You can put in $1 at a time. You can put in $100. You can put in, you don't have to put in money every month. It's up to you. These are just some things that we tried to put in place to make things easier. Additionally, because you can only have one ABLE account in the country at a time, and if you have more than one, it's a very big, problem for the IRS. One of the things that we did to try to help families who may have run into a situation where they opened an account and then forgot that it existed is if the account goes down to zero, all the money's been spent out of it or what have you, and there's been no activity on it. So it's both. It has to be both true. Zero money in the account and zero activity for 4 months in a row. The account gets automatically closed. So that if you then try to open one, because, oh, I've heard of Able, I think I used to have one, I'll try open another one. That won't actually that won't get you in trouble with the IRS. We do highly recommend, particularly for those rep payees out there, for keeping records on how they spend conserved benefits. That's benefits from SSI, SSDI, what have you. You want to make sure that you keep accurate records of the contributions and subsequent use of your funds provided by your benefits. And if you are mixing your funds in Able, so say, grandma put $1,000 into Able and I put $1,000 from SSI, you need to make sure that somewhere you have it clearly denoted that $1,000 in that account came from SSI, because the Social Security Administration has different rules for SSI benefit funds than the Able rules, right? I'm sure anybody who's got SSI knows those rules very, very well. So the point is, though, is that putting it into Able doesn't invalidate those rules. You just need to note, okay, this amount of money came from the Social Security Administration. We saved it in here for use on X, Y, or Z. But the point is that you know how much it is, and you're going to have to keep track of those records yourself. The recommendation from that we receive officially is that you should keep those records for at least 2 years. I spent over 20 years running residential and employment programs. Quest likes to look back at least 3 years. So that's what I say. I accidentally went backwards. All right. If a withdrawal is made for a non-qualified disability expense, so you bought your best friend an Xbox, so it's definitely not something for you, and it's definitely not something, whatever, certainly it was not like, a disability expense for you, right? It's a gift of a recreation device. If you spent the investment growth on that for that in particular, you're going to get an income tax on that growth, because until if you're using it for qualified disability expenses, there's no income tax on the investment growth in these accounts. And you also might get an extra fee. So this is if you use the money and break the rules. There are 2 circumstances where they won't charge you. One is for as part of the estate after someone passes away, and the other one is if you're paying the government back because they gave you too much money. They're very nice. They don't charge you fees if you're doing that. Some of the tax benefits provided and other benefits do the Able Financial Planning Act, provided the beneficiary is the same on both accounts. This is the thing I mentioned earlier. You can transfer funds from your 529 college savings account into an Able account without any taxes or penalties. Again, I mentioned that is supposed to expire at the end of this year. So if you want to do that, you should do it quickly. It might be made permanent. They're still debating it. I certainly hope it will be. It's a great program, but I just like people to be aware. Take advantage while you can. Additionally, Able account owners who meet certain criteria can receive a savers credit on their federal taxes for their contributions into Able. You're eligible if you're 18 or older, not a full-time student, and are not claimed as a dependent on another person's tax return. And as I mentioned a moment ago, as long as any withdrawals from Able are spent on qualified disability expenses, which is almost everything that isn't recreation. And just as a note, remember, you can still have the $2,000 outside of Able. So if you're paying all your bills out of Able, the $2,000 can now be where you save up for recreation things. That's how you can save up for a vacation now, because you got all your bills taken care of by the money that you're putting into Able. So this is a way that you can make these balance out and be allowed to save for the first time ever, both for things you need and for things you want. But any growth on the account is federal income tax free. My quick back of the napkin math for that one is, if you put $100 a month into the account for 20 years, That's $24,000 if you put it under a mattress. But if there was a 6% growth on that money, it would be like $42,000 in change, right? $46,000 in change, something like that. So the point is that there's an extra $20,000 that came from the investment growth, and that would be income tax free money. So this would be where that's using that money for things that are not QDEs. That's where a lot of the penalties will come from. This is a system that is available in Fidelity that I find can be very helpful for families to know, which is called third-party access. The person with signature authority over the account can give someone else a level of access to the account if they choose. One of the big ones for this is for a registered investment advisor. I want someone who's an expert in funds to look at my investment portfolio and help me make good decisions. Another big one for a lot is because you can only have one PSA. That is, I want the other parent to be able to participate with this account. Or, once again, maybe there's someone who a sibling of the individual disability who's going to be taking over these finances 20 years from now. And so 10 years from now, maybe I give them a level of access so they can start learning how the program works. So that's called third-party access. And again, there's a bunch of levels that you can give them the ability to just see the funds. You can give them the ability to, see how much is going in. You can all the way up to they can make withdrawals. But you determine that level of access through the form, which is called the account authority form, which you can download and fill out from fidelity.com. It is signed, and you've got a holographic, you got to sign it physically and what have you. And then you have to send it to Fidelity. Much like I do with any document I send to, service coordinators and what have you, I would call them and make sure they received it. And then that access remains in place until you remove it using the exact same form. So if you want to take away that authority from someone, exact same form saying, I am now removing that access, they have no access, and send it to them. Written notification must be provided to the program manager. This is not the person's, residential program manager. I'm not talking about their employment. I'm talking about their ABLE account program manager, which again is Fidelity in this instance, just to be making sure that we're all clear on the language here. This is giving someone access to someone's bank account information, essentially. So please be very, very, very considered before you utilize this program. But I do like, again, people to know ways that they can sort of work with how their individual with an individual's family or financial support system is set up to provide it. Now, this is my most morbid screen. I apologize in advance because this is the what happens after death screen. The beneficiary PSA can assign a successor beneficiary in event of their death who will receive the account balance in their own attainable account after all account actions have been completed. And that last sentence is very important, and I'll dig into that in detail in just a moment. They can also assign someone to just receive the funds that are in their attainable account as part of their estate. So they can just receive the money. But if that person that they're giving the money to is not qualified to have an attainable account, they will actually need to cash out the account in order to do that because they're not qualified to have an attainable account themselves. So they can't keep it just because they're, somebody else had it. Now, this is the scariest sentence in the entire presentation. After the death of the beneficiary, the account is restricted for 12 months, during which the account is subject to Medicaid recapture from any state wherein the beneficiary has lived, which essentially means Medicaid is able to recover some of the money that they provided in the form of health insurance from that, that growth on the account, should they so choose. Now, that is a very, very bothersome statement for a lot of individuals. And I would like to say I fully understand it. I would like to explain why I am not as concerned about it as you might think about otherwise. First off, before that takes place, all qualified disability expenses can still be paid during that 12 months. So if their person was in a hospital for an extended stay before they passed, all those hospital bills can be paid out of the account first. Their funeral expenses are all paid out of ABLE. Their burial expenses can all be paid out of ABLE. And for most people that I know, that's all the money that's in the account. So, Medicaid isn't going to really have an opportunity to take, because that's going to take most of what an individual might have saved aside. Because most of the folks that I've worked with don't have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars put into these accounts. It's more of an overflow account, so it's not a major concern. The other thing that I can say now, but might be changing tomorrow, is we meet with state treasurers across the country regularly, and so far Medicaid isn't doing it. They might change that at some point, but at the moment they're not really being aggressive. And I can say also that one of the people I consulted with, and again, don't take this as gospel, it's just somebody that I do work with and whatever, had their in-house counsel read through it, and according to them, it is their belief that if there's less than $25,000 in the account, Medicaid isn't even going to bother. But putting all of that aside, because once again, maybe Medicaid gets more aggressive, 5 minutes after I end this presentation. The big thing, as far as I'm concerned, is the fact that, again, I'm going to pay off the last month's rent for their home, because while we're cleaning out the place, we're going to pay off all their medical expenses, their funeral, their burial, all that kind of stuff. I feel like that's going to, for most individuals, utilize the majority of the funds that have put into these accounts. And so I am not as concerned about the Medicaid recapture as some people might be. If it's an area of concern, I completely respect it. And it is a part and parcel that comes with these accounts. And it's certainly something that you could bring up with your legislator if you'd like to see that changed. Now you can see this says consider gift of college, and that seems a little tangential to what we're discussing here, but I will explain why I'm bringing this up. So MIFA has particularly in our 529 college savings accounts, has teamed up with giftofcollege.com to create a gift card that you can buy at your local CVS or on their website at giftofcollege.com to be able to pay for people money to go right into their 529 college savings accounts. We are also able to use this one. It's actually being updated. We have a new card that doesn't just say MIFA U Fund. It also includes Attainable on it. But the MIFA U Fund 529 gift cards can be used to go into your 529A. This is a very clean way of being able to donate to somebody's ABLE account without ever having to worry about creating an asset problem. I want to give you $2,000, right? Oh, well, I have to hold $2,000 briefly before I can put it into ABLE. Is this going to be a big problem for me? Because technically I had those assets, even if it was for 5 minutes or something, right? But if you give me a card that only is redeemable by being put into my 529A account, I never had cash. I never had an asset. So this is a way that can be very simple for family members or friends to contribute to someone's Attainable account or their ABLE account if they're going with it, because if you want to go with a different program, you're fine. But the point is that this is a way that you can do this. And if you don't have it in your local CVS, giftofcollege.com. They have an entire website describing how it can work with ABLE accounts across the country. There's also a way that maybe, if you have a grandma who lives in, Alaska and wants to send some money to help out, with rent or something, this would be a way that they could do that without creating problems. So it's a good system that allows for circumventing some of the problems that we have with people passing assets around. Another great use of ABLE is in that it can provide a wonderful paper trail for in-kind support and maintenance if you have an individual who's living at home. One of them, I've had many discussions with Social Security Administration over the years, and one of the big problems that they often run into, and people don't understand that this is the reason why an audit gets triggered, is the idea of they pay me back, right? It's, I charge them $600 and that covers their rent, their electricity, their water, their garbage, their share of the internet bill and what have you. And there's no proof that that breakdown actually happened, right? So what Social Security Administration would prefer is if an individual pays their 20% of each bill directly to the company that's billing you, and then you pay the 80% yourself directly as well. So there's a direct paper trail. So, my electric bill is $100. He pays 20, I pay 80 for the rest of the household. Instead of him paying me back, he just gives $20 directly to your electric provider. And that creates a direct paper trail that they are, in fact, paying their share of each bill. And you can pay those out of ABLE directly. Well, once again, utilizing the cash management account, once again, move money to the CMA and have that Visa card be connected to the bills. And that's going to make a very clean line of demonstrating in-kind support and maintenance, which can make a lot of things easier for households where you have an adult living with the family for an extended period. There are lots of wonderful resources out there beyond me, but if you like to talk to me, mifa.org/attainable. I try to put out lots of articles and what have you whenever I think of something that might be useful to a family. There is a National Resource Center, Able NRC. They do fantastic stuff because they can pull in like former IRS, auditors to do presentations and what have you about exactly how Able can operate. Fidelity, of course, has lots of information about their specific program. The Social Security Administration, some people think we should be in an adversarial relationship. We're actually best friends because we save them the challenge of having to chase down about spend downs. Because if you have an Able account, you don't have to have one anymore. And that makes their lives a lot easier. So they have a bunch of information about Able as well. There is a email sign up for whenever we have pertinent information we feel like you might want to know about that people can sign. Again, remember, I am going to be sending out this whole thing, so you don't need to write down anything. You'll get it in your documents eventually. But yeah, just that's what we try not to inundate you, but we try to send you relevant information as we find it. And we're all over social media, and you can certainly seek us out. If you have questions after I'm done trying to answer everything that's been asked in the chat and was sent to us earlier, 800-449-MIFA. Say that you have a question about Attainable, send it my way. Probably faster and easier, attainable@mifa.org. I'm the person who mostly maintains that email address, so it'll come to me. And I'm always very, very happy to answer questions as best I can, as fast as I can. All that being said, I'm going to stop the share. And if people don't mind, I'm going to start by jumping into the questions that were emailed over to me. And then after I've dug through those real quick, we can go into the things that were put into the chat as well. I hope that's all right with everybody. So, I'm just going to bring these up. I don't have names or anything associated with these. These are just the questions that I got. Some of these I feel like I've answered. Are people on SSI or SSDI able to use Able accounts to pay for rent? Yes, they are. If so, is that considered in-kind assistance, and will SSI or SSDI decrease? If you are in-kind support and maintenance means that you're paying your quote-unquote fair share. So if you're demonstrating that you're paying your bills, and you can do that by utilizing records saying that you paid your bills out of Able, it should actually help you keep your benefits at the current level. Does the origin of the contribution to Able account, special needs trust, inheritance make a difference? No, it shouldn't anyways, with the exception of if it's conserved benefits. So if it's money that came from SSI, you have to follow SSI's rules, which has its own rules on how you can spend it. Next question. Can Able account funds be used to fund a park home mobile unit? By this, I mean a home built on a trailer that can be placed in my yard for my son. I would think so. There's an interesting thing when it comes to mobile homes in that they're a depreciating asset as opposed to homes, which are usually appreciating assets. But because essentially it would be used for paying for housing, in my opinion, it's not something I've ever been asked before, but in my opinion, that would be a perfectly serviceable use of Able accounts. Can you transfer SSI funds to an Able account for easier use for dining out and other activities? We went over that, I think, in pretty good detail. The answer is yes. What else we got in the questions we got? Does Able allow SSI or SSDI person to purchase a car? Yes. Can they also pay monthly loan and auto insurance? Also, yes. All those transportation things are absolutely things you can pay for directly out of Able. Does having an Able account count as an asset? If you're talking about as far as Medicaid or SSI, no. That's the whole point of the account, is that it doesn't count as an asset. It's a non-countable funds. How can social workers at schools help support families with these processes and learning more about them? Tell them that they exist. There's a lot of people who don't even know that Able still is a thing that currently exists, very sadly. I'm doing my best to try and get the word out. Please tell anyone who'd like to. I present to families, I present to CPACs, I'll present to agencies, I'll talk to anybody. So if you find a group that would like me to talk to them, reach directly out. I'm happy to do it. Question is, how do I save for my child's needs without the loss of benefits? That's essentially what you can use Able for. Unfortunately, there's also a question here that I think is going to be more for the Federation, which is about when the next IEP info session will be, and unfortunately, that's outside my bailiwick. All right. I'm looking into getting an ABLE account. Can I have a joint ABLE account? Who should I put it under, my name or my daughter's who is disabled? What you're going to do when you set up the account is you're going to set up your daughter as the owner of the account, and you'll set up yourself as the person with signature authority. And again, I would just set it up as the parent. Little tip, because as human services professional, I'm used to always starting out by writing the person's name, who I'm writing things on behalf of. Um, when you're filling out the thing, when it says, what is your name? They're not asking you who the disabled person is. They're asking, what is your name? The person who's typing. Because on the next screen, it'll say, are you opening this on behalf of someone? And so you don't just answer the questions like there's someone who's very literal minded wrote them. I've heard that we shouldn't invest in ABLE accounts until later on, as they are not the best investment strategy. Is that accurate? It is once again, there's a wide range of portfolios. If you're not comfortable with and it's going to reflect the current stock market. If you're not very comfortable with the current direction of the stock market, you might want to do a money market portfolio or put a limited amount in it for the time being. But it's as good an investment strategy as anything else. There are investment advisors at Fidelity that you could talk to if you'd like to get more information on the specifics of the portfolios and how they operate. But I don't see it as any better or worse an investment system than any other. I'm just discovering the program. Does it require a monthly deposit? No. How difficult would it be him to withdraw money? Fairly easy. Once again, you just transfer it to any bank you want. Easiest one I've found is that cash management account. Are there restrictions to withdrawing funds? You can't take out more money than you put in. It's a bank account. So besides that, not really. And of course, you do want to withdraw funds for qualified disability expenses. And I think we've gone into that in pretty good detail. My daughter had Social Security for a short time, was told to pay it back. I did the legal process, and after back and forth, my back pay for 4G was waived by the judge. I don't make a lot of money, so I'm wanting to understand how you can save and still receive benefits. I'm hoping that this presentation sort of answered this question, where if funds were in this account, they would not be counted, and that would make that work for you. Next question, but if you need more clarification, please feel free to reach out. That I'm not sure exactly how to if there's more information needed there. Next question. My daughter is 17 and I have no money saved because I'm a single mom. I am so scared for her future. How do I proceed when I need all of my money to live on? I mean, this is just a problem for a lot of folk, right? Where it's really hard to save money, and it's really hard in general. It sounds like she's going to perhaps be eligible to hopefully be receiving SSI benefit funds in the near future. An ABLE account might help you to be able to conserve those funds in a way that would best benefit your household. Maybe not, maybe. I don't know the specifics of your life. But yeah, limits on funds in general in life is really difficult. I'm sorry, I can't provide more guidance beyond that in this particular context. My son lives in a group home funded through DDS. Most of his funds go to them directly to pay for housing and food. That's usually that 60-70% thing where they take that amount for his rent and board and what have you, probably. While he can spend a small amount on personal request needs, when his funds are beyond a threshold, his house spends down. All right, we did a whole thing on spend downs. I feel like hopefully we've been able to go into that. So yes, you can absolutely open an ABLE account. You can tell the house that his extra money should go there instead of being spent down, and then he can use them for other things. And it also means that that threshold, that $2,000 he's allowed to have otherwise, can again now be used to save up to pay for other things. This can actually be a great benefit to a lot of people who are in residential placements because it gives that flexibility. Should all children create an ABLE account, or other situations where another type of savings account would be more beneficial? I'm very, very careful about saying any kind of universal answer, but for a lot of individuals with disabilities in particular, ABLE accounts can be very helpful just to have as a tool, right? You know, it's a tool that you're going to use more or less depending on your situation. There might also be a place where it'd be better for you to have a special needs trust. You can actually use a special needs trust alongside an ABLE account very well, where you can say a monthly dispensation from the special needs trust drops into ABLE for more flexible spending so that you don't have to continually negotiate with the trust to get the correct amount of money to pay for various bills. It can make that a much simpler process. But yeah, it's a good tool to have regardless. But yeah, there's not a lot of reasons why it wouldn't be helpful for most individuals. But again, I'm careful about universal answers. What I do if the local housing authority is counting able disbursements as income when doing annual income review for Section 8 housing, they're incorrect. I would advise them to perhaps there's an advocacy question here, right? Where if the money is coming out of able to pay for their bills, then that is a accepted use of how you're spending money from able. So it shouldn't be counted as income, and it shouldn't because the income was already counted when you received the money, right? What we're talking about is there's a big difference between income versus assets. And in Massachusetts, most of the time things are asset tested these days as opposed to income tested. But generally speaking, hopefully, they once again, I don't know the specifics of this situation, but the money in able should be non-countable for most circumstances. What is type of investment involved? Can two disabled adult sons inherit their family house without penalties? All right, sorry, there's a bunch of questions here. So what type of investment is allowed? You have to use the portfolios in the able count if you're using an able count. Can adult sons inherit their family house without penalties? I am not a Social Security expert, but if I remember correctly, if it is their primary residence, it is not countable against their SSI. If they're having it and then they're renting it out while living somewhere else, then it's an asset. But if similarly, you're allowed to own one vehicle without it counting against your SSI. Don't quote me. I'm not, once again, this is not something I'm an expert in, but it's something I believe I am correct about, and but I can certainly follow up on. In what ways can we protect their benefits? It can be a very big benefit to be able to have a place where you can put funds without having to spend down SSI or SSDI. I think I got through most of that. If there's more questions, please feel free to send them out. When can
Yeah,
we
we
start an
want.
able account? Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. We want to be on uh, be careful of
6
the
o'clock.
time.
Yep.
Right. And we really appreciate your time and we don't want to keep you too long. So I would suggest to folks that we reach out to Adam if you continue to have more questions, or reach out to us and we can help you get to Adam. You will get a recording. You will get this recording, which also includes his contact information. So Adam, we so appreciate your time, um, giving us a heads up on what this is and how it can be useful for our families. I would also like to thank everyone for coming to Connecting Families this evening. We're very excited to have you. We have Connecting Families every month, and I'm not sure what the next topic is, but we can let you know. If you signed up for this, you'll get that. I did want to let you know that over the summer, we are offering our parent consultant training institutes. We're having, it's a 5-day intensive from June 26th to June 30th, from 9 to 4. And we call them the PCTI. And the PCTI is an intensive training program that provides families and professionals with a solid foundation in special ed law. We also have an asynchronous PCTI from July 17th to September 1st. If you'd like to get more information about learning, a big dose of learning about special ed law, reach out to Emma Gregory at the Federation, and she can give you more information about the upcoming parent consultant training institutes. Leslie, did you want to mention anything if you're still on?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
So let people know we are doing CPAC Summer School again this summer, starting on Tuesday, June 24th. It'll run for 6 sessions beginning at 7 p.m. It's free and open to everyone. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about CPACs, leadership, how to have great CPAC meetings, please join us this summer. And the link is in our calendar on our website. So you can just sign up, and hope to see you this summer at CPAC Summer School.
Thank you so much. And Adam, again, thank you so much. We'll probably have you do this again, and I'll contact you about that.
Happy to do it. Did you happen to notice if there's any, do you want me to try and like knock out all the questions that we currently, like, we have just a couple more. I can spare a couple more minutes if you'd
If
like.
you have a couple minutes, sure, you're welcome to do that. Yes.
I understand that if people need to go, they need to go, but I'm happy to stick around for
If
next
you've
like
got
10
it, sure.
minutes.
I'm not going anywhere.
But yeah, I just, like I said, I want to make sure that I help everyone that I can. And
Okay.
so, yeah, I think there's 3 questions left in here, and I think there's a couple in the chat as well. So if I can I'm going to go fast. I'm going to get through these quick, and then we'll let everybody escape. And if anybody needs to go, we appreciate it.
Sure.
And I know that this is being recorded, so there'll be, maybe you can find the recording and jump to the end if you need if you didn't see your question and you need to run. Last couple questions on here. When can we start an ABLE account? Anytime, as long as the individual had the onset of disability before 26. So if diagnosed at 1 and the kid's 2, you can open it right now. If you know that you've had it since birth and you're currently 70, open it now, anytime you want to. When should I contribute to an ABLE account, and when should I contribute to a supplemental needs trust or OBRA account? And when I hit the max annual contribution for the ABLE account, which one is next? I don't feel comfortable giving people a financial advisor stuff about what you should do as far as which one's next and whatever. But each of these accounts have their own areas of things where, like, generally speaking, setting up a special needs trust is a fairly expensive thing to get started. But if you have a significant amount of funds that you need to put in place, special needs trust is very, very useful it's big for, particularly if you got like an inheritance and say you're getting, $300,000, then yeah, absolutely open a special needs trust, and then perhaps have an automatic dispersal that drops into your ABLE account for spending on a monthly basis or what have you. ABLE is a great tool for saving and for putting money when you're in asset challenge about SSI, and for just taking care of the kind of funds and savings that you'd be utilizing for your bills, perhaps also for like a rainy day fund. So making sure not just your bills, but being able to cover your bills for like 2, 3, 4 months, maybe up to a year or what have you, is some of the best usage of it, at least. Again, until you get to $100,000 in the account, it's not going to affect your benefits. So that might be where you want to be considering, how you choose to draw your lines about where to put which amount of money. What's left here? Will the saving, we've talked about how this works with Medicaid and Mass Health. Mass Health tends to follow the guidelines of Medicaid, so it is there. Will a child with type 1 diabetes be eligible for an ABLE account? If once again, I don't know the specifics of this individual's life. If it is impairing their day-to-day life, then quite possibly. Once again, unfortunately, can't really speak specifically because I'm not the medical professional involved. How do these accounts compare with 529 accounts? They're similar but very different. They're both investment accounts for a specific purpose. 529 accounts are for education expenses. 529A can be used for education, but also a great deal of more day-to-day expenses as well. All right, so that's everything that was emailed to me. I'm going to zip through the chat real quick and see if I can't put another 5 minutes on the clock here and see what we can do here. What is the information about Fidelity Investments? They are a program manager. So I'd go to fidelity.com/able for information there. What can you not use the ABLE account for? Generally speaking, recreation. You can't, it's not an explicit thing. Now, if there's some things that might be therapeutic, particularly if you have it in your ISP, that there's something that may be recreation oriented, but actually provides you with therapeutic benefit, you might be able to find sort of a wiggle room there. But what I generally tell folk, because you don't want to create problems for yourself with the IRS, is use ABLE account for things that ABLE can be used for, which is all your bills. And that gives you the $2,000 asset limit outside of ABLE to save for vacations and recreation and video games and that kind of things, which you weren't allowed to save for before because you had a full the full amount that you were allowed to have with $2,000. Now you can have $102,000. It gives you a lot more flexibility. Right here. What if the person with a disability wants to open an account but has a rep payee and can't manage money on their own according to the hierarchy? If they want to, once again, we are there's a dignity of risk question kind of involved here, where there might be a discussion that needed to be had with the person support network in their system in their lives. I'm not going to say what a person should or shouldn't do with their life with their money. A person can absolutely open the account, and maybe the rep payee says you're allowed to have that account. I am not going to make it the designated account. I'm not going to be putting any of your benefit funds there if you're in charge of it, and that can be a discussion that has to be had with in that individual's life. But I do believe in people's having the freedom to try things, to see if they can be successful at things, to challenge themselves. But I can't speak to the specifics of that circumstance beyond that.
Okay, I do think, Adam, I think we are going to wrap it up just
Okay.
for everyone. We'll make sure everyone has your contact information.
Sure.
And we so appreciate everybody coming this evening. We will get you this recording. We will make sure you can get your questions answered. And we'll definitely do this again. So Adam, thank you again. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely evening. We so appreciate you. I think we don't have Connecting Families next month because it's the 4th of July. So go have fun. Bye.
Thank you all very much
Thank you,
for joining
everybody.
us.